A game that had the power to be one of the greatest Battlefield games ever made. Battlefield 2042 was poised to bring the franchise back into the public eye and reignite a burned out fanbase. They released a reveal trailer that was everything Battlefield fans wanted in a new game. The problem was the marketing and the actual game were made for two entirely different audiences. I'm Captain Peach, welcome back to the pit, and today we're taking a look at how a single trailer completely broke a fanbase. But before we fully get into the reveal trailer itself, we need to understand how Battlefield was being positioned prior to this trailer and the strategies surrounding the entire marketing campaign. EA and DICE promoted their game using three core strategies: highlighting the labor of love and effort behind the game, nostalgia for past Battlefields, and pushing the bar of new experiences. But all of these would turn out to be their biggest mistake and ultimate downfall. Now, tied into this concept is the branding of the publisher and developers, which had been pretty weak leading up to the announcement of Battlefield 2042. And because I could spend hours talking about all the issues with EA, I'm mainly going to focus on the brand of Battlefield and its developer, DICE. Up until fairly recently, DICE always seemed to make fantastic games, albeit a little broken on launch. But they always seemed to care about being at the cutting edge, constantly evolving their games, and working hard to ensure the players would be happy in the end. One of the biggest examples of this is Battlefield 4, which had a horrendous launch and was seen as a huge miss for DICE, until they made some fantastic DLC and spent many months fixing all of the issues. Today, it's looked back on as one of the best Battlefields ever made. They could have left it in the state it was in and simply moved on, but they worked hard to fully realize the vision they had for it from the start. This then led into their mega hit, Battlefield 1. I'm not going to talk about Hardline since that was mainly visceral games and DICE only helped a little bit with the multiplayer. And controversial take, I actually had a lot of fun on that one.
Oh, hey, look at that. It just got real.
It can take years to build up a good reputation, but it can all be destroyed pretty quickly. And DICE's brand had taken a decent hit with the back-to-back releases of Battlefield 5,
Trev 5 or Noah,
and Battlefront 2.
Provide players with a sense of pride and accomplishment.
Both games that face some serious controversies. But just like Battlefield 4 before it, they put in the time to improve on their games that had been received less than favorably. Battlefront 2 and Battlefield 5 were both on the mend as a portion of DICE's workforce were spending countless months improving on both games, fixing issues, adding amazing content, and patching the games into the vision they had for each franchise. But just as both games were turning a corner in their development and were finally in a really good spot, EA announced in April 2020 that there weren't going to be any more future updates for these games, as all focus was being shifted to the new Battlefield title currently in development. This is where the hype and marketing truly began for 2042, as this was the first tease for a new Battlefield game in a very long time. And DICE and EA knew that after the previous failings, they needed to re-energize the fanbase and get people excited for Battlefield again. More studios were then announced to be a part of development for this new entry in the Battlefield franchise, with the total being brought up to 4 studios all working on the game. With the knowledge that all hands are on deck and working hard to make sure this Battlefield doesn't disappoint, the hype awaiting the release of the reveal trailer was quickly heating up. Leaks were abundant, promising crazy tech, destruction, and player numbers, and an early development video even teased these ideas, spouting that there would be new levels of destruction and player counts. Clearly, if this many studios are all working on the new Battlefield, the tech is being hyped, and multiple other games are being abandoned to focus purely on this one, they must be pushing the envelope and creating something never before seen and spectacular. Right?
yeah, boy.
And just to drive home how crazy this game was shaping up to be prior to the reveal, the CEO of EA, Andrew Wilson, stated during an earnings call, "The game takes full advantage of the power of next-generation platforms to bring massive, immersive battles to life with more players than ever before, featuring maps with unprecedented scale." Remember that word for later. The next edition of Battlefield takes all the destruction, player agency, vehicle, and weapon combat that the franchise is known for and elevates it to another level. The team is focused and the game is ahead of our internal milestones. The CFO, Blake Jorgensen, added that DICE is way ahead of where we were in prior product cycles. The game was way ahead of schedule, had more studios working on it than ever before, the technology behind it was going to be the most powerful the franchise had ever seen, and the scale was going to be unprecedented. And after such a long period of waiting, we finally got to see the reveal trailer for Battlefield 2042. And what a reveal it was. Now, as I had mentioned before, the 3 core strategies for the marketing was the labor and care put in, nostalgia, and pushing the bar. basically the Battlefield we know and love, but elevated to new heights in player experiences. And this reveal trailer hit all of that to a T. Right from the very start, we are presented with scale that is at the heart of nearly everything in this trailer. Everything is huge, bombastic, the player numbers are off the charts, there's tons of vehicles, massive buildings, massive weather events, and evolution. Everything is bigger and better than ever. It's saying to us that classic Battlefield gameplay has reached never before seen levels. The trailer also keeps moving and cuts incredibly frequently from environment to environment, once again showing scale and vast variety in the number of different arenas we'll be fighting in. The trailer maintains a pretty good pace throughout, giving us enough time to breathe while still taking in the changing environments. Now the trailer does slow down quite a bit in every new scene. While in a trailer such as the Battlefield 1 reveal, the core focus is on maintaining a quick pace and throwing lots of details at the viewer. The focus for the 2042 reveal trailer, however, had an emphasis on Battlefield moments. And this ties into the second strategy I talked about, nostalgia. Just about every time we cut to a new scene, we are faced with shots and events that mirror classic only in Battlefield moments. Knifing to steal a dog tag, driving ATVs off of skyscrapers, skydiving off of a platform, the Rendazook, and a return of Levolution events. All of these are put in on purpose to facilitate nostalgia in the viewer. Nostalgia is an absolute force of nature when applied correctly, and often gets linked to a yearning for the past, where we can re-experience the feelings we once had with previous games with this new one. This also goes right down to the song choice. A remix of Kickstart My Heart by Motley Crue. The original piece of music is old enough to elicit nostalgia in many of the viewers, but not too old that it's out of style. A remix then allows it to be modernized to appeal more to younger gamers as well, thus being the best of both worlds. The song is also cut to key moments in the trailer, allowing for a stronger connection between the two, and allowing the viewer to experience deeper hype and emotions in the moments DICE wants, especially the nostalgic ones. Then, peppered between these nostalgic clips are the new features and the new scale that this game will bring, including larger maps, larger player counts, and bigger Levolution and weather events like a sandstorm and tornado. And this is just the reveal trailer. What else do they have in store? The setting was also perfect. It's just futuristic enough for the developers to have fun and show off some cool new gadgets and create interesting locations, but still modern enough where it's classic Battlefield gameplay. Again, merging nostalgia and traditional Battlefield with the heightened scale of this new entry. It looked epic and incredible in that it was made specifically for the fans. DICE cares about us. The reaction to this trailer was intense and the hype was palpable. Finally, Battlefield was back.
Congratulations. You're officially part of the band. Welcome to the club, buddy.
Let's get something straight.
The excitement continued as just a few days later we got a gameplay trailer showing in-game footage that reflected what we all saw in the reveal trailer, but with some new surprises like the on-the-fly weapon customization, vehicle call-ins, and more of the dynamic maps. We also got the information that DICE was dropping its traditional campaign to focus purely on the multiplayer. DICE General Manager Oscar Gabrielson told Games Radar how a lack of single player will allow the developer to breathe. This allows us to focus. We really want to push the scale here and deliver on our 3 key multiplayer experiences. That decision has allowed us to focus our efforts and really deliver on a number of quality of life improvements, and that's a really important thing for us. They then followed up with a reveal for Portal Mode, which, as the developers put it, is a love letter to the fans. That was a compendium of past Battlefield maps, weapons, eras, and content, all put under the control of the player to mess around with and create whatever they wanted to, akin to something like Halo's Forge Mode or Doom's Snap Map. Why was Portal Mode such a big deal? For 2 simple reasons. 1, it gives ultimate control to the fans to play how they want. And 2, just like the reveal trailer, it relies heavily on nostalgia. You get to relive past Battlefield experiences. But here's the double-edged sword with nostalgia. The past longed for is an idealized version of itself, with positive emotions existing in your memory and the accompanying negative emotions filtered out. What this means is if the marketing is relying on nostalgia, but the finished product doesn't match the idealized memory in the consumer's mind, you will disappoint and anger fans and cause a huge backlash, as has been seen with countless recent reboots of franchises not matching the original feel.
I've told you before, the idols are trying to build a post-capitalist society where money is not a concept.
After that, they revealed the third multiplayer experience, Hazard Zone. That frankly seemed like a quickly thrown together extraction mode that was loosely trying to compete with Call of Duty's Warzone, right down to a rip-off of the name. But once again, the marketing is saying it's big, it's new, and it's going past what Battlefield has ever done before. And then we got the open beta, which, while filled with bugs and glitches and problems and featured some substantial deviations in the gameplay from previous entries, we were assured by developers that the beta build was months old and most of the bugs have already been fixed. It'll be way better at launch, trust me. This deflected any criticism towards the game. Anyone that questioned the state of Battlefield 2042 would simply be told, it's a beta, what do you expect? And this worked on a lot of people, for a while. But in the end, all got revealed. Upon full release in November 2021, players discovered what the game actually offered.
How broken is it? About as broken as your marriage.
A lack of content, a vast number of bugs, huge changes to the core Battlefield formula, including ditching the class system in favor of a specialist system, no squad play, no voice chat, no persistent lobbies or server browser, and didn't even have a scoreboard.
I am not overconfident. I'm just better than everyone else.
The maps were barren and lacked destruction and levolution, and didn't even seem like they were that play-tested for the increased player counts, as everything was incredibly unbalanced. The guns were limited, Hazard Zone was empty of any real content, and pretty much the only real saving grace was Portal mode, but DICE turned off earning XP in it to discourage XP farming, which also just discouraged players from jumping in.
Don't be sad. This is just how it works out sometimes.
Battlefield 2042 was filled to the brim with broken promises and didn't live up to the hype and nostalgia that the marketing was heavily pushing. The reveal trailer, as I'd mentioned, had set up that this was going to be the Battlefield we all know and love, but cranked up to 11 in a new setting. But what was delivered was a game that lacked the scale that was promised and wasn't even made for the fan base. Nearly all of the design decisions for Battlefield 2042 were completely different than previous games in the franchise. The marketing and the actual game were simply not aligned, and were both designed for two polar opposite audiences. Battlefield had always had a heavy emphasis and focus on team play and working together to capture objectives, but Battlefield 2042 flipped that around and focused purely on the individual. There are no classes to restrict you, there's no guns that you can't use, there's no equipment you can't select. The reveal trailer and the marketing focused on the fans, and the game focused more so on current trends and the fans of other popular shooters. That and the unbalanced and broken nature of the game resulted in mediocre reviews from critics and abysmal reviews from fans, as the game became one of the worst reviewed games in Steam's history. And it didn't take long for players to gravitate towards previous games in the franchise. To make matters worse, EA's global director of integrated communications, that is a mouthful, expressed frustration at the community's demands and that the expectations are brutal. The discourse around the game got so heated that the developers even threatened to shut down the game's subreddit. Which, I don't really see how that's a bad thing, but the game was pretty much universally hated by the core fan base. Now, good marketing can't fix a broken game or poor design decisions, but throughout the marketing process, DICE had made a few critical errors when promoting it that had set it up for a much stronger backlash through the three strategies I talked about earlier. First, they put a heavy emphasis on how many people were working on the game, how much ahead of schedule it was, and how they were taking more time to develop it than previous Battlefields. This all creates an expectation that the game will be feature complete and relatively bug-free. This was not the case at all. And clearly, the game being way ahead of schedule was completely false. The second critical error was they relied on nostalgia through their trailer moments in Portal mode. If you're going to use nostalgia in your marketing, you need to be able to recapture the experience that players are nostalgic for. If you don't, they will only compare your game to what was played before. And if it can't live up to that nostalgic image, you will lose any goodwill you may have had. The final critical marketing error was hyping up how much they were pushing the bar, hyping up their unprecedented technology, player count, and massive and varied environments. DICE sold a lie that this game was going to be on a scale never before seen and the next evolution of gaming, but it wasn't. They tried to double the player count, but the game simply wasn't properly designed for it. There were so many missing features that 2042 was more of a de-evolution, and all of the destruction and levolution we were promised was either lackluster at best or downright missing. When I first watched that reveal trailer and saw footage of Kaleidoscope, I thought, oh man, is this the new Siege of Shanghai? Well, we don't have a tower that you can destroy, but how about an antenna? Wow! And yes, I'm gonna sing the praises of Battlefield Hardline again, because at least that game had some sick destruction and levolution. For several years now since the release, DICE has fixed the majority of bugs, overhauled all of the base maps, added in tons of new weapons, modes, vehicles, and of course more maps. They brought back lots of legacy features like being able to actually play with your friends, and a scoreboard so you can, see what the heck you're actually doing in game. Revolutionary. They also updated the specialists and brought back the class system to align it more closely with previous games, improved character designs, animations, and much more. They worked hard to try and salvage what they could from the game, and today it can actually be a pretty fun experience. Still pretty far off from what the reveal trailer promised, but enjoyable nonetheless. But this is what DICE often does, unfortunately. Release a broken game with missing features, spend the next few years bringing the game back to where it really should have been at the start, and then just when it's getting good, move on to the next game. Heck, this is something EA CEO has even commented on. When he was asked about the broken state of Battlefield 2042 shortly after release, he replied, "As much as I hate to admit it, DICE is the studio that's been able to do this a number of times now and really go back and rebuild at the core and re-engage the community. That's what that studio was so great at doing." And while the initial sales for Battlefield 2042 were incredibly high at 4.23 million copies sold, even with some reports saying that this includes refunds and trials, it's still impressive and showed that the community was excited about the game. The reveal trailer worked to re-energize fans. But since then, EA have referred to the performance of the game as disappointing and have refused to offer any updated sales numbers. Meaning, they're probably pretty terrible and dropped off a cliff as soon as fans realized what the game was actually like.
What a waste of a lovely night.
You only get one shot at a good impression, and they gave the wrong impression for what they were actually going to deliver. And for a lot of people, it doesn't matter how much the game has improved, they simply won't return. The reveal trailer for Battlefield 2042 was the perfect representation of what Battlefield fans wanted. A studio that cares, pushes the envelope of technology and scale while delivering on the iconic gameplay and only in Battlefield moments that the franchise was known for. But it wasn't the game that was delivered. DICE had used their marketing to create a picture of 2042, but unfortunately that picture wasn't aligned with reality and was made for the wrong audience. This completely deceived and severely disappointed players and ultimately broke the fan base. And with the recent announcement and mini reveal of the next Battlefield, DICE definitely has their work cut out for them to regain the trust of their core players. And already they're marketing that they have numerous studios working on the game, bringing back nostalgia through visuals and sound. There's new levels of scale and technology, and they're bringing Battlefield back to its roots to re-engage players while pushing the bar for what they can do. Kinda sounds familiar. But hey, that's marketing. If you like what your eyes just perused, slap the subscribe button, and if you want to keep the good times rolling by watching the colossal marketing lie of Halo 5 or how one trailer nearly killed Call of Duty, click on one of the videos on screen. And until next time, stay peachy.